the only thing I remember about being 3 years old is that I could see spirits float, especially animals when they would cross. And that was just my normal. Different things happened throughout my journey, very traumatic events.
Yeah.
I learned to be a better human because of it, not in spite of it. I ended up becoming a grief and addiction therapist, and I received my doctorate in divinity with Raymond Moody.
Mm.
And I ultimately work with children who have near-death experiences when I have the opportunity.
I think about someone that might have experienced trauma in their own lives, and a lot of it. What would you say to them to help them to also find peace and balance in their lives today?
To move into it. Remember, what you run from chases you,
Yes.
and what you try to control controls you.
Yep.
So the goal is to move into the trauma. When you move into it is where the healing lies. That's where the soul is waiting to help you heal it. It's an inside job. And once we recognize, think about the things you've been through in your life, any loss you've had that you thought, I'll never survive this. And here you are.
So welcome to the Michelle Chalfant Show, Susan Grau.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Heard you on a few other shows and had a interesting session with you. And I said, boy, do I want you on my show? Can you come on my show? And you said, absolutely. And I said, okay, cool. So
I know.
we have a lot to talk about today. You've had some incredible experiences. You've had some difficult experiences in your life
Yeah.
and incredible. And I'd like to talk a little bit about all of that, which you have experienced. And what I was saying earlier to you was, you've had a near death experience and you're able to bring truth, what feels like truth to me, from that side over to this side of the veil. So, and it just deeply resonated with me. Everything that you've said, that I've heard on other shows and in our private session, I'm like, yes, yes, and yes. So I'm really, really grateful and happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here, and I just adore you. I feel very connected. So this is going to be really fun and informative, and I'm excited.
Thank you. So why don't you start out? I mean, I'm going to let you take the mic, take the floor, but tell us about your near-death experience, and why don't we start there, and then we'll see where this thing goes.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that prior to what happened to me, I could see things. I
Mm.
remember the only thing I remember about being 3 years old is that I could see spirits float, especially animals when they would cross. And that was just my normal. I didn't think anything. I didn't compare it. I didn't even have a thought. It just was. But at 4.5 years old, I was very close to five, which is there's a very big gap between 4 and 5 in
Mm-hmm.
what we can acknowledge and understand. And I was playing fort with some boys, and they asked me to get some popsicles if I wanted to keep playing. So we had a freezer in our garage, and it was disconnected from our home. And I got up in the freezer to get the popsicles, and I'm calling out the flavors, and they had opened the garage door so I could get in because I wasn't allowed in there to get them. Why popsicles? I thought popsicles were in there. I do not know because it wasn't plugged in.
Oh,
And I climbed up inside the freezer, and they closed the freezer door. And at first I thought, that surely they're not going to keep me in here. I mean, I know my thought was is I'm not going to be in here. This is part of the game we're playing.
mm-hmm.
And then I heard the thud of the garage door. And I innately knew, even at that age, that I was in really deep trouble
Mm.
and that something really bad was going to happen. And I knew my life energy was going to leave. And I
You
don't know
just
how to
knew it.
describe that. I just knew.
You knew it. Yeah.
So I actually believe that even children know. And some are afraid and some aren't. I was afraid. I was going to get out of there. That's what I was afraid of. I wasn't afraid of my life energy leaving. I needed to get out. That's
Mm.
what all I was focused on, was getting out.
Mm.
And I started screaming at the top of my lungs. And my mother said she heard the sound of what sounded like a cat in heat. And we had a lot of cats on the land
Mm-hmm.
that we had. And so I guess that's the sound of terror, is that very high pitched sound. If you've ever heard that sound, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that's what she thought. So she ignored it. She went to the back of the house and started vacuuming and cleaning and doing her thing.
Mm.
And I kept screaming. And then I saw these beautiful lights. I saw one, and then I saw two more pop in. And they were like I want to say starlights, but they weren't. They were just expansive. I can't describe them in human terms. And I kept screaming and I heard stop screaming. And of course, I didn't stop screaming because I was afraid. And
Mhm.
I heard it again, but this time it was very firm. And they said, Susie, stop screaming. We're going to get your mommy. And I kind of felt like that but first sound. They didn't
Mhm.
say it, but I felt it like, but first, we're going to do this. And then I was at the bottom of this beautiful set of stairs. It was very old and cracked, cement-like, plastery cement-like. It was just very interesting, but very etheric.
Mhm.
But I didn't know that word then, but that's what it felt like to me. So I'm going to describe this as an adult woman.
Mhm.
As I tell this story, please know this is not my child knowing all this. My
Mhm.
adult woman knows this. And throughout my life journey, I learned more and more about what I saw. And I looked up and I saw this room, and it had pillars and they were all cracked and chipped and old, but beautiful. And there was this open ceiling. It was wide open, like infinite. And
Mhm.
I just knew I needed to get to this room, but I didn't know how I was going to get up the stairs because I felt like jello. And the minute I thought it, I was on the edge of this circle that I knew was there and it
Mhm.
matched the ceiling. It was that a big circle that matched the ceiling, which I know makes no sense because then where was I standing? But it
Mhm.
matched the ceiling. And I remember looking down inside this well, which I have found out later, I studied under Raymond Moody, and he said to me, I said, I didn't see the tunnel. How come I didn't see the tunnel? Everybody sees the tunnel. I didn't get to see it. I was kind of
Uh-huh.
upset about it. This is years later. And he said, did you ever stop to think that maybe the well was the tunnel? And I went, oh, aha moment, right?
Ah, yeah.
So I watched these, it was all one consciousness, but I was hearing different, what I would call prayers. And I
Mm.
was hearing things like, my mommy has cancer. Please, God, don't let her die. Or I'm turning 16. My dad won't let me have a car. Please, God, make him give me a car. And I was hearing all of these different, things, my mom this, my dad that. And it was all moving like looking back like DNA. It was moving like this all
Mhm.
together like DNA. And I I I looked at the lights. They were on my left side, and I looked over and I said, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. Now,
Mm.
I want to explain that I'm going to call everything I saw rooms, but they weren't rooms. It was a dimension. I
Mhm.
just don't have words for it. And dimension doesn't even describe it. So I say rooms because it makes it simple.
Mhm.
But I remember saying, well, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them.
Oh.
And I didn't like hearing that. I remember
Mhm.
this feeling I
Mhm.
had of, well, my mom says that to me, like, I don't like this. I want, it didn't feel good, but I felt wonderful. So I wasn't feeling negative. I just was a child. I was still me. I took me with me.
Mhm.
And then I looked, there was, I think it was crystals, but it was more effervescent, beautiful structures, but they
Mhm.
look like crystals because they're structured like that. And I remember looking ahead of me, and there was this beautiful, what I call the yellow brick road. I had seen The Wizard of Oz. And so in my
Mhm.
child state, I thought I was looking at the yellow brick road.
Mm.
And I remember seeing these pyramids at the front of these roads, and there were pavers that created this pyramids. And I was watching what I believe were humans pulling from the bottom of this pyramid and beginning to pave their path. And they were upset, and it was bumpy and crooked and all out of alignment, basically. And I watched them drop to their knees and say, for the love of God, please help me. Nothing's working out.
Mm.
Nothing's going my way. Now, this is all metaphorical. I want to say that. And I know that
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
And I watched these beautiful beings, these angel beings come in, and they started removing the pavers and putting it to the bottom of the pyramid and going to the top of the pyramid and pulling off a paver. And then they'd start paving, and it was perfect alignment.
Mm.
And I asked them, what are you doing? And they said, we are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it. And I said, how do you know if you're walking it right? Now, I know they put these questions in my mind. And they
Oh,
said,
yeah.
bless and block everything. Make no
What'd they say?
mistake. We bless and block everything. And they said, make no
Mm-hmm.
mistake.
Mm-hmm.
You can get through a block, battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. And if there's another wall or another block, you shift again. And if there's another wall, you shift again. And before you know it, you'll see us paving your path. The words in my head that I'll never forget, and I never listened, I tried to control everything. I want to
Mm-hmm.
say that was what you run from chases you, and what you try to control controls you. We are your guides. We
Mm.
will take you down the path as you need it to be. And they said a lot more. There was a lot more that happened in that room. I only remember bits and pieces of the details of the rest. But as my life goes on and I'm getting closer to the spirit world with my time on this planet, I'm going to be 66. So it just, I'm getting closer. It makes more sense. It's making more sense. And they're repeating things to me. I'm understanding it differently.
Mm.
And, somebody asked me, how do you remember this so clearly? And I said, one, they wanted me to. And I said, two, anything that's profound, go back to being a child and think about the Wizard of Oz. Do you remember the ruby slippers? Do you remember the witch? Do you remember her color?
Mhm.
Do you remember the bike
Mhm.
and the lady on the bike? Yes, we remember because it had a profound effect on us. And
Mhm.
that's why I remember it so well. I remember thinking in my head, you know, I'm in a place that I don't understand yet. I know I've been here before. I knew
Mm.
that.
Mm.
And it was not foreign to me. I didn't understand it because I was in my partial human thinking because I wasn't going to stay. So I
Mhm.
wasn't fully transitioned, obviously.
Mhm.
But I knew I'd been there before.
How did you know you weren't going to stay?
I knew. I just knew. I knew
Yeah.
things, and
Mhm.
they told me they were going to get my mommy, and I trusted and believed them.
Mhm.
It was pretty
Mhm.
simple. I just
Mhm.
believed them. They were grown-ups to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I just knew they wouldn't lie to me. I didn't even
Right.
think that thought. I just knew. And then I went to, there were some other things that happened with them that I keep close to my soul. And then I was in this beautiful room. I'll call it the room of knowledge. And it was a dimension I can't explain. And I watched these, they weren't books, they weren't tablets, but they were
Mhm.
memories. But I don't know how to describe how I saw them on something when it wasn't a book or a tablet. So I'm going to say a book.
Mhm.
I watched this book come in front of me, this knowledge, this memory base, and I watched these people, a little girl, and I think a man and a woman, a mother, father, whatever it was, and some other people standing, and they were saying things. And the little girl was saying, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I can handle this, and I can handle that. And I was watching them say, no, 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 that's way too much to go through. And on a podcast, someone said, do you think that was you? And I was like, boom, like this, whoa, what? It was kind of like she was choosing the PhD in hardships. And I can actually raise my hand, and probably many of you can, that we've had the PhD in hardships.
Yep. Yep.
And I said, where am I? And they were discouraging this little girl. And she was, the whole family was kind of just standing there like, oh, we're going to do this with you, like almost a shock look, like, okay, we're ready, let's do it. And she kept pushing. I know I can do it. I can. I want my soul's going to grow and expand. It's going to be awareness, like, oh my goodness. And she was saying all these words that I didn't all understand. But I remember the words, and they said, well, you do have free will.
Mm.
And boom, they were gone. And I said, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of knowledge. And I said, where did they go? And she said this one being, the strong one, said they went to the next incarnation. And I thought, well, what
Mm.
does that mean? No, I didn't think, I just wasn't even, I didn't understand that at all. 10 years later, from coming back from this experience, someone said to me, do you believe in reincarnation, Susan? And I went, oh my God, there's that word. And I
Mm.
knew what it meant, but I had never heard it before that. I just heard it that one time.
Wow.
And So I said yes, because I'd heard it there. And then I started looking into it, and learning more about it because it was a word wasn't foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then moving through that just rather quickly, because it's a very long story, I was in another room or another space or dimension, and it was the room of companions, and it was animals.
Mm,
And they were happy and joyful, and they were beautiful creatures. And I was so touched, and I love animals. And I was sitting in this beautiful field of daisies and dandelions, but they weren't. There, the flowers there are something that you've never seen here. And the colors are so vibrant and everything. And you can't, there is no match to it.
mm-mm.
You've never, you can't find a color like that here.
I
And
hear
there
that
was,
all the time. All the time people say that.
oh,
And the music and the colors.
I'll explain the music
Yeah.
to you. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, and everything is pulsating. Everything has a pulse. Even the
Mm-hmm.
blades of grass pulse life.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hold this close to me because I get very emotional. My nose is going to start raining. I'm going to have it. I'm going to go into tears, but I'm going to share it. I looked to my left and there was this, I guess I would call it a mountain, but it was different than that. It wasn't solid, but I wanted to go up it because there was this beautiful essence of a being.
Mm-hmm.
It was beyond anything you feel here. Like the love,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. And I wanted to be near this love, and I couldn't. And I watched this beam, this beautiful light beam come towards me. And at the moment it happened, I was everything and I
Mm-hmm.
was nothing. And I was perfection, absolute perfect in every way.
Mm-hmm.
It was though you weren't existent. It was just love. Love doesn't describe it. Just want to say that there are no
Mm-hmm.
words.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to stay in that energy forever. And but the animals had the same type of energy. And they were surrounding me and moving around through these trees and this grass, and it was just beautiful. And just to move through that because some things were said to me that I again hold really close to me.
Mm.
Sorry.
No, please don't apologize. Gosh.
I think I looked to my right and I saw this beautiful effervescent cottage of some sort and this beautiful light. I call her my light angel. She was floating towards me.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, I want to float. I hope I get to float. I imagine I was, but as a
Mm-hmm.
child, I was becoming my human thought pattern again. And I knew that
Mm-hmm.
somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a combination. And I thought, I want to float so bad. And then she said, it's time to go. And so here's something I don't share either. There was this giant crystalline boundary, effervescent boundary. And I saw faces and bodies kind of like morphed going in and out of this beautiful boundary. And I tried to reach my hand into it and I couldn't. And I knew that if I could have, I wouldn't be coming back. It
Mm.
was the true other side
Wow.
and the full totality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be coming back in this life journey. Let me say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, she said, and the next thing I knew, I was by the water. And this beautiful being was walking me, and I was floating, obviously. And so was she. And I was really excited. And she said, you're going to go through the water and be cleansed and you're going to see your mommy again. But you're
Mm.
going to have a difficult journey. And I know you don't understand that. She explained to me, and I didn't like that sound of that. But I loved the idea of seeing my mommy. I was back in that place, wanting that attachment. And when she said they were going to cleanse me, I thought they might clean me up because I was in the field and I was dirty and I was going to see my mommy and my mom wouldn't want me dirty. And
Mm.
so they were, that's what I thought. But what it truly was about is she explained that, everything we go through water, And water is our cleansing mechanism.
Mm,
And when they speak, angelic beings speak, the words and the music come out at the same time. And the music was created by the angelic realm. And it was created to help us heal or feel, to bring us back to our grounding
mm,
mechanism, to bring
mm,
us back to the knowledge of our sweetness or our goodness. So if we're angry about something and we turn on music, what happens?
hmm. Yeah.
We
It
lighten
changes
up.
your state. Yeah.
Yes. If we're grieving, what happens? We cry and we feel. So
Mm,
it was created to elicit change and emotion in us to create a better view or a different view of what we're experiencing.
hmm.
And so I could hear that. And so my experience became very drawn back to my mother because they were playing Edelweiss, which makes me think of my mother.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my mother was from Germany. And so that was very, I just felt this energy of that. Her family's from Germany. I mean, my mother was born in the United States. And so, and then there was this other music that was just angelic, just went through your soul as a healer, just a
Mm,
healing mechanism. It's just instant
hmm.
healing.
Hmm.
And then my mother said she heard your baby's in the freezer. And I remember talking to my mom briefly, to say, Mommy, I'm in the freezer. And I think it was my first experience of opening up that pathway,
Mm,
to be able to speak to the spirit world.
hmm.
And she didn't listen. She said she heard it the third time. It was like a scream in her ear. And she said she finally dawned on her, oh my God, my baby's in the freezer. She ran outside. She said that the garage door was closed and she knew I was too little to open it, but the boys did, you know. And she said that she almost turned around and something told her to go in. And she rushed to the freezer and opened the door. And I was facing inward. I wasn't facing out. And she spun me around and she said I was ashen and my fingertips were blue. And I was getting bloated. Like I was literally like getting bloated. And she said that there were no cell phones and garage door openers and things like
No.
that. And
Mm-mm.
she said that she dropped me to go run and get help and call my sister, and she was screaming,
Mm,
and that I fell. And obviously, I was meant to be here because when I fell forward, I cracked open my jaw, and not that hard. I mean, she put a butterfly band-aid on it, so it couldn't have been,
hmm.
the worst thing. And I took a breath, and I
When you
still have
fell.
that scar. Yeah, I
Wow.
still have the scar of my jaw crack. And I took a breath, and I started breathing.
Mm,
And when she got back, and I don't know if she was calling nine. I don't even know if there was a 911. She was calling for help. That's all I knew. I don't know who
hmm.
she was calling, but I always feel like she was calling 911, but I don't know if it existed then. And then my mom, a couple days later, when I came back to and I was feeling myself again, I remember my mom being in the room. And when she walked out, I remember that hearing her walk away, and I opened my eyes finally completely.
Hmm.
And because I was going in and out of consciousness pretty much. My father owned hospitals. He had his doctorate. He had a PhD, and he knew to take care of me. She told him that night, because she was afraid that I, needed to go to the hospital, and they took me to the doctor. But anyway, ultimately what happened was is that I opened my eyes and I saw spirits everywhere. And
Wow.
I thought they were the boogeyman. I was so young, I didn't connect those
Wow.
dots. They needed to go away. So I'd cover my head and say, go away, go away, go away. And they didn't. And I did that a lot throughout my life.
Hmm.
And they would just wake up, I just died, and tell me things about themselves. And then I'd hear so and so's brother, sister's friend died, and that's who was visiting me. And it was just bizarre things like that. And then I ended up becoming a grief and addiction therapist, and I received my doctorate in divinity with Raymond Moody.
Mm,
And I ultimately work with children who have near-death experiences when I have the opportunity, and I do grief work. That's my
wow.
story.
Thank you so much. Such a beautiful, beautiful story. I have all these notes I took. I was like, I want to ask her about that and that and that. Wha- Something I think that's important. I would love for you to touch on, like, if you could say a few words about the family that you grew up in, because it's very
Mm.
interesting when you talk about the room of knowledge or the hall of knowledge, whatever you called it. The room of
The
knowledge?
dimension of knowledge, the
I
room of
mean,
knowledge.
it to
Yeah,
me, it sounds like the Akashic Records, but I don't know
it
what you
was.
would call it. It sounds like the Akashic Records. And you said, so all the people were around you saying, are you sure you want to choose that light? Like that's a lot. And
Yeah,
you did choose a very difficult life.
I
Would
did.
you be willing to touch on that a little bit
I
and
will.
share?
I will,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was trafficked as a child, and that was happening before. Our
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood had a lot of pedophiles, and I was transferred around and filmed and things like that, which was very traumatizing. My mom and dad were from Dubuque, Iowa, and as intelligent as they were, they didn't understand that kind of behavior at all. So they didn't know to protect me. They thought I could go run around like they did when they were little on the land, right?
Right.
And and then, as I grew older, I had a lot of experiences, but my both my brothers and my mother died by suicide. And, just I was infertile and incapable of giving birth and had really difficult journey with adoptions and just a lot of different things occurred. But I
Yeah.
grew up in a dysfunctional alcoholic family.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything was, different than what maybe we think it should be, although it was perfect for me.
Mm-hmm.
It taught me
Mm-hmm.
how to be me and to grow and expand.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just different things one after the other, and had murder in our family, unfortunately, and my uncle, and just different things happened throughout my journey, very traumatic events.
Yeah.
But I always say to myself, I would not want to go through it again. I'm gonna be honest, just as a human, if they said they would take away everything I understand, I would go through it again. But if I could understand what I understand now and not go through it, I would take it.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's mine. So I always say to people, if I were to put all of my traumas in the middle of a room and you were to put all your traumas in the middle of the room, I would take mine back and you would probably take yours back
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
they're ours and we
Yep.
understand them differently than someone else would understand them.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to be more because of it, not in spite of it. I learned to be a better human because of it, not in spite of it. I learned to be more expansive and understanding of grief and loss because of it, not in spite of it. So everything that I am today is created because of all the experiences that I experienced on my journey. So I wouldn't remove them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very painful, very traumatizing journey. Yes,
Mm-hmm. It's a lot what
it
you just
is.
mentioned.
Oh, there's
Mental
more.
illness in your family. I remember hearing a little
My
bit
brother
about,
was schizophrenic,
yeah, I mean, that's a lot. And three suicides in one family.
and five in my life, two friends. Yeah, yeah.
Talk a little bit about what you remember. Or I don't even want to say remember because it's like you said, I just know it. Like what you experienced as a young child, it's in here.
Yes.
It's just I mean, you were just brought to tears and it was how many years ago?
62.
62 years ago. And you were just brought to tears as if it happened an hour ago. Like it's
Oh,
that
yeah.
fresh.
Yeah.
So, what do you know about that we choose our lives? Like, can you talk a little bit about what you remember and know about that?
What I know is that, I hear a lot about how everything is a planned event, and I don't subscribe to that at all.
Hmm. Okay.
I know that there are many plans and contracts that we make,
Hmm.
and we have free will for soul expansion. If we didn't have free will, we wouldn't need to be here. We just do it there. They plan
Right.
it, we do it, right?
Right.
So it kind of looks like this. If my soul wants to resonate in the understanding of loss, I'll have
Mhm.
loss. Who I
Right.
lose, how many people I lose, etc., is a free will issue.
Mhm.
If my soul wants to understand and resonate in marriage, I'll be married. Who I married, how long I'm married, the kind of marriage I have is my free will. They give us options. Excuse me, my nose is running now because I was crying. And so I'm
That's
going to just pat
okay.
it very briefly here. Who we marry, how long we're married, the kind of marriage we have would depend upon our choices. So let's say
Hmm.
we have five doors. We might go in one door and have enough health and well-being in our marriage, or we may be walking into a narcissistic relationship. And because of our childhood, we may not even recognize it or choose that goes hand in glove with my journey because maybe I had a narcissistic father, whatever it is.
Right.
And I choose to stay, or my free will can decide to turn around and walk out that door at any given time and shift that energy and go to the next one. So we do have free will
Hmm.
and choices. And that is so that my soul expands the way my soul chooses to expand by my choices. So that's how
So
I see it.
thank you for that. And when you say expand, you mean grow.
Grow.
Yes. Yeah.
So souls are perfect in every way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is nothing they need. I want to say that. And so people say to me, well, if we don't need anything and our souls are perfect, why do we have to have lessons? And I say, because it's infinite.
Mm-hmm.
We infinitely learn, and our soul infinitely grows in perfection. It doesn't change the perfection of what our soul knows. It just grows in that perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the power of our soul and our experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it is perfect and it is not damaged. It is the one place you can go to heal. If my soul was damaged and your soul was damaged, there'd be nowhere to go, you know? So
Right.
that makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
It feels our trauma, but it
Mm-hmm.
does not become damaged like our minds and our body and our spirit does. The soul is different. It is our go-to, as our healer.
I'm going to make up a story because I don't know what's true, what's going on inside of you. But after watching you a few times, having a personal session with you, you seem very balanced to me. You seem
Mhm.
peaceful, if I might say.
I
I don't
am.
know if that's true. So you say that you are. And I think about someone that might have experienced trauma in their own lives and a lot of it. What would you say to them to help them to also find peace and balance in their lives today?
To move into it. Remember, what you run from chases you,
Yes.
and what you try to control
Yes.
controls you.
Yep.
So the goal is to move into the trauma. When you
Mm-hmm.
move into it is where the healing lies. That's where the soul is waiting to help
Mm-hmm.
you heal it. You know, we're always looking outside of us to heal. I'll get a car, I'll feel better. I'll buy a new house, I'll
Mm-hmm.
feel better. I'll get fall in love, I'll feel better. It's
Yep.
an inside job. It's an
Mm-hmm.
inside job. And so
Mm-hmm.
we move into that inside part of us, that space where the trauma lies, and we face it because
Mm-hmm.
we are created to be able to do it. And once we recognize, think about the things you've been through in your life, any loss you've had that you thought, I'll never survive this. And here you are,
Mm-hmm.
because we are created for that. We are grieving from the moment we are born. We grieve when our mom takes our bottle away. We grieve coming out of the womb. And
Mm-hmm.
then we get placed in our mother's arms and or our father's arms, and life is good and we are wrapped in a blanket of love. And when
Mm-hmm.
we cross, or when someone crosses over, it's the same experience. They are fighting it. They don't want to come. They're afraid. They don't know what to expect. It's the unknown. And then they land in the afterlife and they're wrapped in a blanket of love, and peace it is, and love it is. We come here with the understanding. We agree to the fact that we will not stay here forever, that we will die from this place and live in another.
Mm-hmm.
We know this in our souls. We also agree that others will too take that journey. We agree to pain. We agree to experience something. The reason I think we agree, and people always tell me, I'll never come back. I'm
Yeah.
never coming back. And I kind of giggle because I tell you, hey, listen, Michelle, you're going to be able to step into a moment in time where you get to experience every single emotion, everyone, love like you've never felt. Birth of a baby, put them in your arms, that love, making love, falling in love, joy, peace, every experience. But with that comes the other experiences of pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think you'd turn it down if I told you it was a blip, but you'd get to have all of that. We don't want to turn it down. We want to come in and experience this beautiful process of growth and expansion, because we get to feel things that we don't feel there. We live in love there, period. And I say, do we grow? A little bit, but very, very slowly. And we want fast growth. We're creatures of wanting everything now, even here.
Yeah.
I want it and I want it now. But we do learn there, but it's very slow moving. But I wouldn't turn that down. If you told me that I could experience my adoptions again with my babies and put them in my arms, if I came back, I would do it. If you told me I could have my first making love, and it was a good experience, I'd do it. I'd want to do it again. Or
Yeah.
that knowing when you look across the room and that's your person. And you just feel that, oh, that feeling of young love, and just all of it. I don't want to miss out on that because I'm afraid, which we don't feel fear there, so we wouldn't be afraid to come here. Here, we're
Right.
afraid.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
want to do it again. I'm afraid.
Yep. And
Not
people will
there.
say, why would I ever choose a family like this? Or why would I choose a life experience like this?
Yeah. I thought that. I've had that same thought. I'm
Yep.
having a human experience. And then I remind myself that this experience has taught me who I am, the tenacity of me, the strength of me, the
Mm,
power of me, the
hmm
power of the now. I tell people life is in session, be present,
hmm
and you won't miss the experience. And we're so busy thinking about what could
mm,
or would or should happen that we're not in the now. It's the same thing with mediumship. People say, how do I connect into my loved one? And I say, be present. When we are present, we witness what's around us and we are with the journey. But what we do is we're projectors. What
hmm
if we're in the what if? I always say, if you're in the what if, get out because you're just in
Yeah.
fear base. That's all you're in. And fear isn't your friend.
Right.
Unless the tiger is chasing you, fear isn't your friend. You know?
Right. I love everything you're saying, and I agree. And I hear this all the time that as a soul, it's an energy. And to live on the earth, you need a human suit. You need a body. So I can touch this, my microphone. I can hug you. I can hold someone's hand. You can't do that if you're just a ball of energy. So we need to come in. We feel the wind on our face, making love, all of these things. And I think obviously we all forget this. When we cross through and the veil comes down, we forget all of it. Something
Well,
that
we'd
you,
have to.
yeah,
If we
yeah,
remembered the experience there, we
hmm
would not do this experience freely and with free will.
right,
We would plan everything, and then
right,
it wouldn't be a soul growth. So,
exactly.
we have to not remember in
hmm
order to do this authentically and to grow authentically.
And then when we die, it feels like we were here for a minute, if that, correct? Like I
Yeah, there's
hear
no
this.
time there.
Yeah, there is
People
no
go, I
time.
don't
So
understand how there can't be time. So I'm going to give a little explanation of that.
yeah.
If I were to put you in a room
Uh-huh.
and light or no light, but there was just walls, no TV, no programs, no watch, no calendar, nothing.
hmm
After a while, it would just be the now. You'd have nothing else but the now because there is no time moving. Time
Mm,
is a human concept. They are in the now, period. Time is
mm,
linear, it is not. They are in the now because
hmm
there's nothing else. And
mm,
we have to learn to experience the now here. Think
hmm
of the power of that, being in the now, in the moment, in the true experience of what's happening. Our brain wants to take us somewhere else,
hmm
especially if it's trauma based or we're under stress. Even getting married, how many people were present at their wedding? Think about it. We
Oh,
are so stressed,
no one?
you know. Yes. So,
Right.
the goal is to learn to be in the now. It is the hardest thing I do outside of self-love. It is
hmm
the hardest thing I do. And but it is the most powerful. So when people say to me, I want to see my loved one, I want to know they're there. How come I don't feel them or see them? And I try to explain to them, if you are walking in the now, you will experience them. But if I were to ask you, you went outside today, what color the flowers were, you'd probably look at me like, I don't know. Well, how would you know if your loved one's there then? How would you know if you're
hmm
not even seeing the tangible now? You
hmm
wouldn't know what is around you, obviously. So it's about being present in the moment. And that's how we hold on to our loved ones and we recognize them and experience it.
How do we do that? Give us some tips on how to step into the moment and into the presence, into presence.
Be where your feet are. So
hmm
simple,
I know,
literally,
right?
be where your feet are. So when I
hmm
start going out into what if my child gets in the car and she doesn't make it to the place and I'm out here in that fear base, let's just say, this is an example.
hmm
I say to myself, not now, Susan, not now.
hmm hmm
Where are your feet? Well, I'm walking on the pavement. I've got red shoes on. I've got a dress on. I'm looking at the plants that are around me. I come back to the now, the moment.
hmm
My brain
hmm
cannot be in two places at one time.
hmm
The power of the brain, right? So I can't think of two things at one time. So I come back to now and then I'm present in the moment.
Mm,
And that fear, that anxiety starts to leave because I'm in the now, because it's not right now, Susan. So when I
mhm,
do readings and I hear about someone who's lost their child and I hear about something's really tragic, a dark, what I would call dark and painful, that dark night of the soul stuff, I am coming home and I might think, oh my God, what I'll get a panic. What if what if I go home and I lose my child? What if
mm,
my child's, and I'll
mhm,
say, not now, Susan, not now. And
mm,
I'll say, what am I doing right now? I'm driving. Pay attention and be in the moment.
mhm,
That is how we become present with the spirit world also.
mhm,
Because when we're in the now, we recognize what's happening now. And
mm,
they are with us in the now because they don't have time. It is the now for them.
mm. I love this. Something that you said that I would love to hear a little bit more about, as you said earlier, there's only love on the other side. You didn't say that there was judgment.
No.
You didn't say we
Oh
had to
no.
earn our way into
Oh no.
what people
That's a
might,
human concept.
right?
They do not think so little and small.
What'd you say?
We think they do not think so little and small. That is,
Oftentimes, yeah, it seems like it's Santa Claus that is like up in heaven. Like, if you're good, then then you get a present. If you're not, then you're not. Then you get coal in your stocking. I'm like, God's not Santa Claus. So can you just
no.
expand on that a
Well,
little bit?
I think humans created that to control.
Yeah.
I'm going to control you if I put you in a place of fear if you do
Mm,
anything other than what I want you to do or what
mhm,
I deem to be proper. Right? So I'm going to control you with that. We control our children with guilt. I guilt-based my children. I know I did. How could you do that? I mean, we do those things, I'm honest. I did that and I wish I wouldn't have, but I didn't know how to do it any other way because that's what we do as humans. And
mhm,
so it was created for that concept of control. And they're not into control there. They want you to understand what you try to control controls you. And that being free is what actually creates the beauty of the soul expansion and being true
mm,
to who you are. So when when we think of them as so little and small as the human brain, we're going to lose concept. What else can we do? We only know that thinking. We are
mm,
humans having a human experience. We are also humans having a soul experience. We're not just souls having a human experience. I want to say
mhm.
that it goes both ways.
Right.
So our humanness is trying to find our soul base, and our soul is trying to find our humanness so that it can interlock together in order for us to do this journey healthily. And it's
Mm,
hard to integrate those two because they
mhm,
are so separate in value and in power. So when I hear people say through the human thought pattern what they're thinking, feeling, and doing to us, I want to, just shake them and go, wait, you're making them so little and small.
mhm,
And that is not who they are. If you step into your soul and ask your soul, would something that loves me so deeply and created me to make mistakes and grow punish me? The answer would be unequivocally no. And they are soul. The soul is the vine to the divine.
oof.
That is what it is.
Drop
And
the
that's
mic.
what they taught me. And a vine is pulsating lifeblood. And so it is so powerful in
Mm.
connection to that.
I,
It is the
I
lifeblood of
absolutely
the
love that.
afterlife.
The soul is the line to
The
the
vine,
divine.
the
Oh, the
vine
vine.
to the divine. And a
Ooh.
vine is full think about a flower, a rose, and the vine. Think of
Mm,
a tree and the vines.
mm-hmm,
They are full of lifeblood. They pump life into the flower. We are the flower and they are the vine. And that soul is our flower, right?
mm-hmm,
And the encasement, the flower might die like the body, but the seeds are still there and the lifeblood is still pumping and a new flower comes.
mm.
And if you look at it that way, you recognize the connection to the soul in the afterlife.
You are a therapist. You work with addiction and grief.
Mhm.
What would you say? And I say this the same. I'm very aligned with you. Like, turn toward what scares you, turn toward your pain. You must go into it and then you move through it. How do you, from a very spiritual perspective or soul perspective, however you'd like to say it, how do we as humans work with, what's your opinion on things like addiction? And addiction and grief, are they the same that you would work with someone? Like how, give us some understandings of,
Similar.
yeah, our trauma. Yes, yes, step into it, look at it, go into it. Can you give us anything else?
Yeah, well, let me say this. People say to me all the time, I can't go through it. And I say, it's okay. It will go through you. It will go through you. It
Mm-hmm.
comes to you. So you don't have to be afraid that you can't make it through it.
Mm,
And that's very powerful to know because it gives us the freedom to just step into it and be in it. We don't have
mm-hmm.
to do anything. If we're doing something, we're doing too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
just have to
Oh,
be in
yeah.
it and it will
Yeah.
go through us because it has no option but to do that if we
Mm,
want to survive and grow. And we do. We have a natural innate want, need it to survive. There is nothing special you do. You simply be in it. So when I was in the grief, the loss of my mom was because I had already been through so many suicides, and it wasn't that long ago.
mm,
It was excruciating to me. I couldn't understand how she could put me through that. I was very self-focused at that moment.
mm-hmm.
And I dropped to my knees and I didn't think I'd get up. I knew I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
get up. I can't go through this. I can't go through it
Mm-hmm.
again. I just can't.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I kept saying. And yet it went through me.
Mm,
And here I am.
mm-hmm.
I just allowed it to be.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was I wrestled with my pain. And when I stopped wrestling, I wrapped my arms around myself and I kept rocking myself and saying, I know you love me more than anything. I was not only talking to my own being, I was talking to the spirit world. And I just kept rocking. And
Mm,
something happened miraculous. And I suggest everyone do this in their journey when they're in trauma. It was like I was infused with that love that I felt when I was there. It's the only time on this planet I've ever felt it like that.
mm,
And it rushed through my body. And I could feel every ounce of my being emanating love. And I knew I was safe. And I knew
mm,
they were there to help me. I just knew. Not because
mm-hmm.
I'd had a near death experience, but because I allowed them to show me.
Mm,
And I stood up, and yes, I continued to grieve. And yes, I continued to have to step into that pain. And I continue to grieve to this day. It became part of my journey, not separate from my journey.
mm,
And I
mm-hmm.
was able to keep moving into it. And I continue to do that when it comes up. Grief is a powerhouse. It is in the corner doing push-ups, waiting for you to be vulnerable. You're in the
Mm,
grocery store, you're looking at a can of beans, and boom, you start crying. It is in the corner doing push-ups, growing strength. It is.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
have to know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it's okay because we
Mm-hmm.
have this mechanism that we have been created to have, which is beautiful. That is, we don't have to be in it 24/7. You'll notice that all of a sudden you're laughing, or all of a sudden the tears stop and you're picking up the can of beans and
Yeah.
walking out and paying for them. It
Yeah.
it it is a mechanism that was blessed to us in order to get through it. So we're not in it 24/7, but in the beginning we feel we are.
Mm-hmm.
And but I can tell you that we are meant to experience that loss because we were meant to experience that level of love.
Mm, wow.
And we made an agreement. People say, how could God take my child from me? We knew coming here that we would have loss. We knew. It's
Mm-hmm.
not to say we knew we'd lose our child. That's not fair to say. Nobody plans that. I mean, to think that we would plan for our child to die by suicide is insane to me. Then they'd go, yes, go ahead, plan it and go through that horrific, most painful, gut-wrenching
Mm-hmm.
experience that any human can feel.
Mm-hmm.
No, no. But we knew we'd have loss.
Yeah.
We agreed to it, and we knew we'd die and leave here. And die is just a word we use on this planet for the human body, by the way. We are actually birthed to birth. We are birthed
Mm-hmm.
here and we are birthed there,
Mm,
or rebirth, whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
each
W-
direction.
What about addiction? What can you speak? I love your spiritual take. I don't know another way to say this, or perspective on addiction.
Well, I believe addiction becomes biochemical, but I believe it begins with a God-sized hole,
Oh,
and
tell
we're
me
trying to
more.
fill it.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to heal something that, or feel something that we're not experiencing, feeling, or not healing,
Mm-hmm.
and or don't want to. And we're looking for something, and our brains are saying, we'll find it this way. And
Mm-hmm.
then we do something that takes us into an altered state, and we go, relief. It's kind of like when you're grieving and a doctor gives you a medication,
Mm-hmm.
say Xanax or Valium. It's a relief instantly because you leave that thought process. And and addicts, and I know every addict I've ever spoken to has told me they have a God-sized hole, that everything that they've
Mm-hmm.
tried to fill it with doesn't work, but that does for the
Mm-hmm.
moments. But then it starts creating the hole to stretch and expand because it's not a true healing. And then it's bigger and bigger and bigger. And so they
Mm-hmm.
take more and more and more. And then the body becomes addicted to the quantity level, and it learns the pathway of quick release,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
like anything. You hear of those people that use cocaine and they use it for years and then they stop. And 5 years later, they decide they're at a party and they go, I'm just going to do it once.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they take it and they die
Mm-hmm.
instantly. The brain learns pathways, and that pathway has been learned, and it doesn't unlearn them unless we create that. And that's really hard to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
the pathway went so fast to their heart that it actually created a heart attack because the pathway was so familiar. It's that way with
Right.
grief.
Mm-hmm.
We learn pathways of depression. We learn pathways of anxiety. Being in anxiety is a physical response. People say, oh, you're doing this to yourself. You can talk yourself out of anxiety. That's nonsense. It's a
Mm-hmm.
physical response and reaction. We're reactionary beings. And that physical response is going through our being. And so the pathway has been learned. We have to unlearn the pathway.
Yep.
So that's what I see with addiction. And I help them unlearn the pathway.
I didn't work with over the course of having a private practice a ton of addicts by any means, but I did work with some. And what I found was really fascinating to me because what I ended up doing with so many, if not all of them, was it went back to learning how to stay embodied and feel, process, and metabolize their emotions. They couldn't do it, could not do it. So it was about bringing them back to self, breathing with them. Let's feel that. No, I can't. I don't. Yes. And I'd stay with them in it. And I couldn't believe how healing that was.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I,
That's what
I
we do.
right? It's being able to stay embodied. And then I found over the years, like so many of us don't know how to do that well. We just don't, we weren't taught that. How in the world are we supposed to know how to feel our emotions? We're not,
Yeah.
we don't know how
If
to
I
do
asked somebody on this
that.
on this podcast right now, what do you feel in your body? You'd probably have to think about it.
Right.
What is your
Yeah.
body feeling? My toes are tingling. I'm very aware of that right now.
Yeah.
My
I
toes are
have an
tingling.
opening. My heart, I feel so much joy having you on the show right now. My whole body, my heart's like, "Wah." And my third chakra is opening up. I'm like, I really, really am having such a wonderful time here with you. So
Yeah.
I feel a lot of
But
joy.
most people won't be able to tell me unless they think about it and start touching and base with their body. You want to know, especially if you're going into meditation, people say they have to leave their body, and I say, be present with your body.
Right.
The first step is to know what you're feeling so that you can release that. So if you
Yeah.
have tension in your back, you need to know that so you can release that tension. Tension in the
Yeah.
shoulders, dropping your shoulders down. These are all mechanisms to become aware of the embodiment of where your soul is seating. Your
Mm-hmm.
soul is seating in your body. It's
Yeah.
seating in your heart space. The heart
Yes.
has 40,000 neurons.
Yeah.
They call them neurons.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has memory capacity, it has a learning capacity, and that's where the soul seats. So
Mm-hmm.
when people say to me, well, when I've had all these bad experiences and I remember all of them, and then I go to the other side, am I going to have to live in them still? And I say no, because this is filled with junk, everything you've ever experienced. The heart has the memory that you need in order
Mm.
to grow and expand, etc. And that goes with you. And that's where your soul
Mm.
seats. So what is happening? Constant healing, constant.
Mm. Is there anything else that you can share? And I have one more question before we shift, but I want to make sure that if there's anything else you'd like to share with the audience. But what would you say to somebody that feels, here's my last question, then you can share whatever you'd like. But what would you say to somebody that feels really stuck right now? What could you share with them?
Well, I can tell you that we're never stuck. Our brains won't allow it. We're actually evolving. We just don't recognize it. And so at the end of that feeling of stuck is
Hmm.
evolution for our soul growth.
Mm,
We need to be right where we are. Be comfortable right where you are. Allow it to be right where it is. We want to change uncomfortable feelings instead of just being there. And what happens is they chase us,
hmm.
right? They come
Hmm.
again and again
Hmm.
and again.
Hmm.
So it's being in that space of right now. It's the most powerful thing I can say to someone. Your is being in the now and allowing whatever is to be what it is.
Hmm.
You
Yep.
don't have to like it,
Hmm.
just allow it. And you'll find that you'll move through it and it will move through you.
Mm,
What I want to say, if I were to say anything, is to recognize the true soul purpose. It isn't, I'm going to be a healer. It isn't,
mhm,
I'm going to get, give love to everybody else. It isn't any of those things. It is self-love. It is the hardest thing you will do
mhm.
is to fully and completely love yourself. And I actually believe that when we get there, we're probably leaving.
Mm,
I will never
mhm.
fully and completely love everything about myself, but I work
Right.
very hard at loving myself. We've been taught that that's conceited. We've been taught that that's self-centered. We've been taught all these negative things. But in truth,
Mm-hmm.
and that was to control us, right?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
in truth, we are put here to continue the love process in our soul and to expand it. So self-love is the number one soul path. We have a life path where we do healing and all those other things, which helps us create. Every time I heal someone or help someone heal, I'm going to say that differently,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we heal ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm in that process, I feel self-respect and I feel love for self. And people say to me, how do I get to a place of knowing what self-love is? And I tell them, so ego is always in the way. Ego's fear. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have self-esteem, which is fluctuating at best. Today I feel good, I look good, my hair looks good, or today I don't feel good and my hair,
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem kind of has this fluctuating outer appearance.
Mm-hmm.
It also has some inner work, but it's mostly outer appearance. And then we have self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel that you are stepping into ego fear and your self-esteem is on the floor, pull from history and self-respect. I look back and go, I did this beautiful thing yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect myself for that. And I pull that forward and my self-esteem starts rising automatically.
Mm.
So it's a tool.
Love that. Mm. Thank you so much. Okay, we are going to end right now, but I just wanted to say thank you. This was absolutely beautiful. And I just so appreciate everything that you are contributing to the world. And thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable today with all of us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can you hold up your book? I know you have a book. Let's see the book.
Yes. Yes, I love my book. I love see the three dots, three
Oh,
angels, and the pyramid.
I love that. Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons by Susan Grau. Thank you. Where would people find your book and where would people find you?
Well, Hay House sells the book, so it's anywhere you buy a book.
Okay.
The audiobook is done by me, and
Hmm.
so you hear my voice in it, and so all the inflections are true to the book.
Hmm.
And it is coming out in paperback in July, and you can pre-order it in paperback. Right now, it's in hardback, so it is less expensive in paperback, obviously.
Hmm.
And you find me at susangrau.com, Grau, and Susan Grau Official on all social media. And I have a sanctuary called the Infinite Soul Sanctuary, and it is where all things spirit. If I were to say, I teach on the sanctuary.
I love
It's
it.
a membership site. I bring guests on and talk with
Hmm.
them, and they teach. Everything is about teaching about the afterlife and connection into your loved ones and spirit and
Mm,
understanding the spirit world.
mm. We will add all of that to the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.